follow on me. We're marching out into the night. Follow on me. We're standing up against a giant. Follow on me. We might be walking in the fire, but if it's where we're meant to be, then on me.
Welcome everybody back to On Me 20 podcast. And by now, if you've been on several of these, you know that On Me was probably Mark's final words to his teammates as he cleared several houses and was getting ready to go up the stairs. And he yelled to his teammates, "On me." And they knew that he was saying, "I got the lead on this. You guys follow me." And as they went up those steps, they drew fire through a window. And for the last and final time, Mark made the choice to turn into the line of fire. He didn't run from it. He didn't fall below the wall. He didn't let his teammates take the casualties. He made the choice to give his life for the freedoms that we enjoy every day. He gave that choice to save his teammates. And we have that same choice. In the midst of coronavirus, we had no choice when the virus came through, but we do have a choice how we respond to it. We do have a choice what our mental attitude is that. And so that's why we're challenging you to follow us as we say on me. And we give you some examples through the guests that we've had as they share some of the experiences they've gone through in life that were tough for them to overcome and how they did that. So welcome back, David. We are so excited to have you here today. I understand from Travis, there's a little bit of a nickname.
He got to you first.
So I think it's Thorgus, is that correct?
that was Clint Bruce, man. You know, the adaptive name, yeah, that was our boy Clint. So Clint, he was the one who coined that nickname. And it's like any nickname. In the moment, if you're just kind of like, yeah, I'll go with it, it typically goes away. But I was having this morning and this thing, and like Clint said Thorgus, and I was like, dude, don't call me that. And he was like, oh, it's here forever. And Travis, I was training at the time, and Travis is like Don King. He's the ultimate hype man. So I'm like, all of a sudden it was wildfire and it's stuck, and I hate Travis for that.
Well, Travis, I did it, got him. So, but anyway, welcome. We're excited to have you. You know, I've known you. That's probably that time frame is just about when you and I met, when Travis was releasing the documentary, and you were still there at Clint's place, and he was working out with you. And you were, you know, motivating him and encouraging him. And man, you talk about some inspiration to watch, you know, him with, you know, quadruple amputee doing more physically in that gym than I could ever do with all four limbs of mine. And so God bless you for your motivation and what you continue to do for those. I'd like to give you your official introduction and let everybody else get a glimpse into the man that I know. David Vobora grew up with a football in his hands and the NFL in his dreams. His path to the NFL, however, was anything but simple. After playing football at the University of Idaho, he was the last pick in the 2008 draft, earning him the not-so-coveted title of Mr. Irrelevant. David used this underestimation of his skills and abilities to his advantage during his 4-year career with the St. Louis Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. David's career wasn't over after he hung up his jersey in 2012. On the contrary, it was just beginning. Upon retiring from the NFL, he opened Performance Vault, a sports performance training center aimed at helping rebuild wounded warriors whose potential was grossly unrecognized by society. At Performance Vault, he emphasized strength training, a tribal mindset, and the ability to use one's underdog status to their advantage. Soon after, David met quadruple amputee and military veteran Travis Mills. This chance encounter led to an explosion of growth at Performance Vault and the launch of a nonprofit organization called Adaptive Training Foundation. The growth trajectory at ATF has been astounding. They built a world-class team, and they now operate out of an 18,000 square foot facility in Dallas, Texas. David's desire to pour his heart, mind, and soul into everything he does resulted in a new industry standard for training those with physical disabilities. ATF's first of its kind Train the Trainer program provides physically disabled people access to equal means of physical fitness. David has an unmatched ability to connect with people. He genuinely believes in others until they believe in themselves. He has the gift of making people feel loved, for who they are and not for what they do or what they can provide. David is a hope dealer, an alchemist of human development, and a sweat psychologist. He always has one eye on personal and foundational growth, the other eye ensuring no one is left behind in the process, and both feet firmly planted in the present. And thank you for being in the present with us on Me 20 podcast number 16. Welcome.
So honored. Mama Lee, you just name it, I'm there.
Oh, awesome. You're so sweet. I love you and your wife. And you've been a blessing, even though you're not in that military community, you've got that same mindset. And, you know, you're one of my adopted boys too. And so blessed to have, you know, I laugh sometimes. I said, I'm like the old woman in the shoe now. I have so many children, I don't know what to do. But blessing to have so many amazing men and women surrounding me. Mark was an amazing kid, and I guess it takes a lot of people to replace him, but not that you'd ever replace him. But so thank you. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about you. You know, we know about the NFL, but where did you grow up? How big was your family? Tell us about your family now.
Yeah, I grew up in Eugene, Oregon. I call it Hippieville, USA. You know, my pops played for the Ducks. He was a linebacker at Oregon. You know, I didn't know anything different. So the Pacific Northwest and rain 300 days a year was normal. Fascinating, right? And then, you know, I was always an underdog. And so high school to college, people are like, yeah, he's good, but does he have that next level for Division I? I had one Division I offer, my Vandals, University of Idaho, and I took it and started as a true freshman. I was like 190 pounds soaking wet, just getting my butt handed to me in the run game every single play. A lot of humility. And, you know, I fostered success one day at a time. Literally had the vision always for myself to play in the NFL, but, you know, took what was right in front of me, just that next right step. And as it kind of came to junior and senior year, I was a prospect, and they said middle to late rounds and awesome. And the draft rolled on and on and on and on. And I think most of my friends were either drunk or passed out, or drunk and passed out. And the call came, and I was the last pick. And, you know, give me a crack in the doorway, right? A foot in the door, and I'm going to seize it. That's always been. So this on me theme is, I got goosebumps right now, standing up. That's it. And I believe wholeheartedly in being a champion to the underdog, because that's very much who I am. And so I was drafted by the Rams. I come in, and it was like the first week with the Rams, and the community relations department asked me to come speak at an elementary school. And I went there, and how I opened, I said, how many of you guys have ever been the last pick in the playground? And hands were like, I said, well, I was the last pick last week. And let me tell you why it's not going to stop me, and it shouldn't stop you either. And so what I believe wholeheartedly is that, you know, we minister from our mess, right? Our message or our purpose comes from the things that we've leaned into, the adverse relationships, the adverse circumstances, so that we can, in our weakness, rely on a different strength. And, you know, for me, that's really the ethos that built this foundation. You know, Travis and other recalibrated warriors seemingly saw themselves as broken. And I believe if you treat somebody broken, they act broken, right? But if you look them in their eyes, you treat them like a whole person, you give them a role within the tribe, right? Because, you know, a team is a roster. I've been on lots of teams, organizational chart, roles, responsibilities, linebacker, quarterback, all these things. But a tribe is different. They recognize that the perceivably weakest, maybe least inexperienced or newest person, they may not feel like they are an integral part to that sum of the whole, but as soon as you empower them to be that, and in fact, use their scars as the qualifying factors for why they're differentiated and can make an impact, suddenly that whole person shows up. So for me, the time in the league, becoming a starter as a rookie, awesome. You know, a respectable NFL career with the Rams and the Seahawks, great. But truthfully, and you know this all too well, Debbie, my story is really about hitting rock bottom. And that was the genesis of all of the, I think, the favor and the impact that has been created post-football. You know, for me, I had to have the blinders on to be successful. It wasn't that I didn't care about people, but my whole why was wrapped up in football. And I know Ryan is probably nodding his head right now as a former athlete. It's synonymous, right? Warrior, you're used to giving orders, taking orders, you know, you're downrange, and you're present because you have to be. But suddenly when that's torn from you, it's like, whoa, and you don't know how to really relate to those emotions that you've been keeping at bay. And so for me, it was easier to cope with opiates. The pain pills were readily prescribed, and it was a really bad downward spiral that led me to a nasty drug detox. I lost 34 pounds in 7 days, had 2 seizures. At one point, I tried to take this crappy plate of hospital tuna casserole that was cold, and I tried to take it to this microwave to heat it up, and I couldn't even stand up. I couldn't even grip the plate, and I fell. The plate shattered. I was on the ground, embarrassed, ashamed, trying to scrape up the plate when the nurses rushed in, and they didn't worry about the plate. They actually restrained me because they thought I was going to use the plate to try to cut my wrists and kill myself. And guess what? 2 little 5'4", 119-pound females were able to restrain me and tie me to the bed. That was that moment of just full surrender, just realizing that everything that I had tried to do on David's strength was no longer applicable. And so that was the beautiful, I say beautiful with immense gratitude, bottom that allowed for the springboard for me to relate to a lot of the people that I serve today. And that's kind of the beautiful full circle when I think that we look for purpose in our pain.
And, I often say that it's because of the pain that my passion developed. And without that passion from that pain, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. There's no way physically that for 14 years I could work on average 80 hours a week and maintain and keep going. There's some glory strength there that keeps me, but it's the passion. And it's not like I feel, oh my Lord, I have to do another day. There's another veteran that needs my help. Oh my gosh, it's inspiring. It's encouraging. It is a great day. When I have a veteran, a family member of our military, a Gold Star family that we've been able to help through. It is a lot of work, as I said, to do this 20 days in a row. But to know the inspiration that comes from hearing the comments from the people saying, this is just what I needed to hear today, and so we do those things from our pain that bring that passion, that bring that story. You wouldn't have the relatability
right
to our military and to what you're doing if it wasn't for that.
Yep.
And we've talked about this numerous times as we've gone through the 16 days, that it is those stories, it is the struggles that we go through that each time prepare us to stand because of the experience that we've had before in our lives.
Great.
And we wouldn't be there without that pain. Without that, you wouldn't have a story. You wouldn't be impacting lives. You wouldn't be...
they call it the testimony for a reason, right?
Exactly. So finish then, once you were to that place, then it wasn't like the next day you woke up and your strength was back and everything was fine.
No.
Tell us the rest of that.
So I'm gonna give you my favorite definition of leader. Okay, it's by a guy named Napoleon Bonaparte. Mm-hmm. Who's not a guy you probably want to quote too often, but he said that a leader is a dealer of hope. Hope. Think about that. Hope is a priceless currency. I consider it like water. Without hope, we die. There's a reason why when a human baby is born, if it's not touched, it dies. And we're built for that connection, that interaction. And so to me, a hope dealer is someone that recognizes that the actual gift is in that pain, that it is in the scar, that it is in the perceived disadvantage, that the way they play that hand, like poker, the way they use that perceived disadvantage as their qualifying factor, that's really the grist of the real, gosh, I used to say this all the time, like people that are willing to share their scars are proof that they're going beyond them. And those are the type of people I want to be around, because not only do they have a humility, but they also are servant leaders. And so, anyone listening today, don't shy away from some of the things that you've endured, because they're your superpower. And so for me, I looked at, okay, I've been a captain, I've been a leader, I've had a successful career in the NFL, I had a catastrophic shoulder injury, and I had a chance to go back to the NFL. And I'll never forget this. I was sitting across from Navy SEAL Clint Bruce, and the Cowboys called. I'd been retired a year and a half roughly. Sean Lee, their linebacker, had gotten hurt, and they called me and wanted me to come in. And he could tell I was really struggling with this. And I hung up the phone, and he looks at me and he says, do you want me to tell you what I think you're thinking? I'm like, yes. And he said, I think football's familiar. I think the ridge line that you're pointed toward with these recalibrated warriors, that's really where you're called. And dude, he gave me the discernment, like a brother in Christ. I literally picked up the phone and I told my agent, I'm retired. And that's the last time I talked about football.
Wow.
Or thought about it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the paychecks are a little bit better in the NFL than they are not for profit. just a little.
A little.
But, that was, again, such clarity. I remember where I was when I prayed in my car to say, all right, God, if you want me to open this gym, make the opportunity laughably clear. And then it was so incredible, the funnel that all the stuff was coming at me. I was like, God, you got to slow this down. I'm having trouble discerning it, right?
Yeah.
So, for me, it was really about, seeing the worth. When President Bush and Speaker Paul Ryan came to the gym a number of years ago, it was really fun because President Bush, in classic W fashion, is just cracking jokes and doing his thing. And then he just pulls everyone in with this magnitude. And he says to all of it, was about 15 of our warriors that have all been combat injured, right? Lost limbs, spinal cord injuries, catastrophic. I mean, serious stuff. And he said, your greatest opportunity as a leader is in front of you. Thank you for what you did in the uniform, but people are going to notice. They are going to look, and what are you going to do with it? And they're all like, and I'm like, I say that all the time. Why are you
listen to me?
Yeah. But that's really the ethos. Why I started this gym. Yeah, I met Travis. I saw this quadruple amputee. I realized there was a need for access. Could a guy like that go to a normal gym? Maybe, but he's going to be patronized. Someone's going to come up to him every 10 seconds and say, you're such an inspiration. And that's people doing their best to pay homage to literally the most honorable choice, right? To take an oath to go and sacrifice yourself, your body, your lives for our freedoms. That's the top tier. So it's not people's fault, but I wanted to create this ecosystem because, to your point earlier, Travis was doing 100-pound sled pulls across the turf, and all of my NFL guys I was training are like, oh, maybe my pinky toe wasn't as sore as I thought it was, this morning.
Perspective, yeah.
Perspective. And so that shift allowed for, again, access for a population of over 40 million Americans with disabilities, right? And so what's really cool about, the creator and all this is the floodgates that have opened because of the visible and visceral reaction to the stories of the people we serve. Obama flew us to the White House. And at the White House, I told him, he was very complimentary. He said, what you're doing matters, don't stop. And I appreciated that. But what I told him was, hey, I'm not going to stop until there's an ADA certified trainer in every gym in America. Because inclusion done well gains that perspective shift.
Yeah.
And imagine that's real growth, right? That's not political. This is true bipartisan to me. And I love my church. The world has enough gyms. It has enough churches. I personally feel the gym is the right brick and mortar to create inclusion done well that is agnostic of so many factors, separate from church walls that oftentimes feel very exclusive and kind of put up barriers for people where they're not quite as inviting. So, to me, my football career was a springboard for using my skills, my gifts, and a lot of the things that I endured as being lost so that I could now redefine myself, my capabilities, and see where my gifts match somebody's needs. That's being a hope dealer. It's looking somebody in their eyes and being real, being honest, and giving them permission to be vulnerable too.
And I love that the hope dealer, one of the programs that we have through America's Mighty Warriors is our Heroes Hope Home. And I want to do that same thing. I wanted to give people hope. The night that Mark died, the most devastating day of my life, God led me to Psalms 27. I've been a widow for 27 years or 25 years. There was no one there to hold me and tell me it was going to be okay. And God promises to be a husband to the widow and a father to the fatherless. And I've seen him do that over and over. And I opened my Bible. And the last verse where he led me in Psalms 27 said, I would have lost hope if I had not believed I'd see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And that was that motivation for me. And as I closed my Bible that night, in my thoughts, he said, I want you to read this at Mark's funeral. I want you to give everybody else the same hope that I've given you. And so that hope is so crucial, so important in what we do, because I feel like so many people, our veterans getting out of the military transitioning. When you were trying to transition out and had your injuries, for that time, there was no hope. You didn't think there was anything else. You just wanted to be an NFL player. Now that was gone. Our men and women who serve in the military, they get out, and nothing compares. Nothing is the same. As you mentioned, that tribe mentality. We don't replicate that hardly anywhere in civilian world. And so they need to have that hope in the midst of COVID-19. Our world has been turned upside down. Many people have lost their businesses, lost their jobs. They don't know how they're going to feed their families next week, have lost loved ones. And so we have to give them that hope. And that was a big part of, doing this series, is to be able to give people that hope, give them actual tools that they can use to then focus and walk through what they're struggling with.
If I can say this, that's what it's all about. So inspiration is a fun word, and it floods in. It feels really, I just got goosebumps hearing you describe that verse and what hope means to you through the lens of something that's unfathomable to me. Gives me, yet again, amazing. My grandma used to call them Holy Ghost bumps. But that's everything, but you got to remember too, like inspiration, it washes off. And so I think it has to be converted into aspiration. You have to make it applicable, to your point. What are the tools? How am I able to become aware? All of a sudden I had something that I wasn't aware of. Now I am aware of it. How do I apply it? And that's what I hope, if you guys have a great listen to this, awesome. But my hope is that you can apply these principles and be willing to show your scars, again, as proof that you can go beyond them and that they are the qualifying factor to serve somebody.
That's so good. So good. And I think that, so when you were doing that initial transition, because you had that attitude before that happened, that you were going to, overcome and not quit. You had that perseverance. But what were those actual tools that you used in the midst of that then helped you to get to the place where you are today, where you found your new mission? In that process, what things did you do?
Great question. I'd say first it was acceptance. For me, and for a lot of probably alphas that are listening to this, the word surrender, didn't like that. Didn't like that a lot. This whole raise the white flag to win thing, sorry, that was beaten out of my DNA a long time ago. But that word acceptance, I could get behind.
Yeah.
And so the first step was to realize, from the addiction principle, I was powerless. And I had to accept that. And yes, there's the 12 steps, and there's, the rooms of AA or NA or other things. And that really helped me for sure. But it just gave me a larger scope of where things could go if I wasn't willing to listen to the still small voice. And that's what I sought. I grew up in church. I will say this with incredible humility, I guess. I had a savior, but at times in my life, I didn't have a Lord. The thing that was prioritizing both my actions and my thinking, it wasn't synonymous with that belief. And so there was David's will, and that worked until it didn't. Until it became the thing that perpetually broke me down. At our foundation, we run this flagship 9-week course where we do 27 workouts. There's all these different experiences. They pre and post every session. They do breath work and mindfulness. We don't call it meditation early on, because try to tell a combat injured Marine that they're going to meditate. They're like, okay, hippie, get away from it, right? But this whole comprehensive mind, body, and soul type of experience that happens in 9 weeks, at 2 different points during that, we host a root meeting. And the root is about finding the root, the reason behind the reason for, a guy may go home every night and grab a bottle of bourbon, but there's a reason behind it. The bourbon may be a problem, but really there's a deeper why. And so that's what my why today is. I want to help people close the gap between who they think they are and who they're supposed to be in terms of how God sees them and what the kingdom call is. Whether that's in the gym, on a stage, on a podcast, I just want to allow people to be heard. Jesus was profound at asking great questions to questions, right? Somebody would ask him a question, he'd ask them a question.
Yeah.
And it's it wasn't, I in my own, as I read scriptures, I think about it, I'm like, it seems playful, but I think at sometimes it was a bit like cunning almost, right? Like not out of bad intention, but like for people to go like this disruptive, differentiated. And I think when I go up to an amputee, one of our guys, triple amputee, actually crazy story, Kevin Trimble, Army veteran. Him and his family, he was part of a crazy cult, like 250 miles in the wilderness in Canada. Long story short, his family, they escaped. Him and his brother enrolled Marines. He went Army, first deployment, IED, becomes a triple amputee. He's 19 years old. Mm. Now, he had his bouts with suicide, depression, all these different things. Well, I just saw this kid randomly in the airport. And I literally run up to this guy who's a triple amputee, and I go, hey, man, how much can you bench with that one arm? And he goes, why do you ask? I go, because I bet you're a stud. And then he was like, nobody talks to me like that. Nobody even comes up to me. And I said, well, what's your story, man? And then he went into it. And then so I think that, again, walking up to somebody and saying, thank you for your service, that's awesome. But look them in their eyes. Yeah. You know, I don't care if it's a homeless person begging for money, whether you have something to give them or not, roll up to them and give them the dignity, right? Because again, I'm a champion of the underdog. I want to look at them and say, where are you from? What's your dog's name? What was your last job? What is it? That's an interaction that's going to create that hope. And so, you know, I believe wholeheartedly that if we can be disruptive with great intention, that's going to show through, and people are going to see Christ. People are going to feel that love, and that's going to create a visceral reaction that will have a force multiplier that you may actually never see, and maybe you're not supposed to, but it will happen.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think what you're saying, that shows them that you really do care. And I'm not saying that people that say thank you don't care. Yeah. But it just comes, it's easy to do. You can walk by and just say thank you. You don't get uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable when you walk up to someone that I used to go visit Walter Reed all the time, and it is uncomfortable to walk in. And the people that would go with me, because I'd done it before and a lot of them hadn't, I'm like, please do not go in there and start crying. If that's who you're going to be, then we don't want you on the team. Don't feel sorry for them. That's not what they need. These are warriors. They need a kick in the butt that tells them, that challenges them, that motivates them, that says, okay, yep, here's the card. Here's what you were dealt in the cards. Yep. Yes, it sucks, but who you are inside, you're still there. You're still a warrior. So what's your new mission going to be? You know?
Remember Jay Redmond's letter, Navy SEAL Jay Redmond, that he posted? It was just viral. If you're listening to this and you've never, just search Jay Redmond or Navy SEAL letter on hospital room. It's awesome. It's just basically like, if you're going to enter here, know this. And he just exclaims, hey, this is a room of hyper growth, of recovery, and of future and purpose. And if you're going to step in here and you don't buy into that, I don't want you in here. And that's like, woo, that's just good stuff.
Yeah, Jay Redmond was actually one of them that I just happened to be in Washington, D.C. When he got brought in. So I was actually there just a few days after he was brought in, before the note was even on the door. And so, yeah, very powerful. You know, he says, if you're coming here to give me sympathy and feel sorry for me, go somewhere else. These wounds I earned doing what I love doing, and I would do it again in a heartbeat for you, you know, but it's that mindset. You know, I'm sure there were days that you, in the midst of your struggles, there were days in the midst of mine, I didn't feel like getting up and going and doing anything or being productive, but I could choose to do that with my will. I could say, I am going to get up. I am going to go walk around the block today. No, I feel like sleeping in bed all day, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to waste my life. That's not what Mark would want me to do. That's not what God wants me to do. And not that you have to process through grief. You had to go through the acceptance part. You don't just pretend nothing happened, or I didn't just pretend that Mark didn't die. You still have to go through those things that our emotions and our feelings and our body has to do. But these are things that will help you in that process by doing that exercise, by eating healthy. You know, there are endorphins. You're the sweat expert here. You know, there are those endorphins that are released when we're working out, when we're doing things that make us feel better emotionally as well. Right. And so there's so much that we can be doing, but that hope is such a crucial part of, you know, finding that new mission and having hope in where we're set to go, what our steps are meant to be. And that's so crucial, so important. The time, we could sit and talk for hours and hours, David. And I think, when we started this, I thought it was just going to be a 20-day thing to help in the midst of COVID. But I think I'm saying, yeah, I'm going to continue not to probably do 20 days in a row again. But
dang it.
Yeah, at least we're going to start with on the 20th, since it's on me 20, and at least do one a month and have that be longer where we can go into great detail with that as well. But one of the things that we love to do for our guests, I mean, you guys have all donated your time to come on here and inspire and encourage and support what we're doing in America's Mighty Warriors. But we want to give back to you. We want to be able to support you. So what things are you involved in? Where can people support you? You've got your own foundation as well.
Yeah, it's Giving Tuesday. So what an alley-oop right here. And I just challenge anyone listening, find that vein and sacrifice, be willing to go just beyond your comfort zone, because that's where the meaning is. That's where the real rubber meeting the road lies. And I think it's Giving Tuesday, whether it's the Adaptive Training Foundation, right? What we offer and what we deliver is completely cost-free, and we're going to keep it that way. My entire staff took an insane salary reduction during this COVID. And I'm so proud of them, because that was their decision. And we're going to come out of this thing okay, right? Even government support and small business assistance, we are solid, because, again, this mission, it's not about David. You don't touch me and suddenly get healed. This is about people that are a soul mirror for all of us, right? If you see a Travis Mills doing a 100-pound sled pull without arms and legs, you ask yourself what you're leaving on the table. And done in a non-judgmental and grace-giving way, I think you discover that part of you that's indestructible. And so this Defy Impossible is a moniker that we use at the gym, because I believe these people are qualified, and especially in a time like this, COVID, right? The 200-plus athletes that we put through our program over the last 6 years, and largely so from contributions from Mama Lee and other people that are champions to our program, that has been the compounding effect for them to go out and be hope dealers. They buy into this message. So, adaptivetrainingfoundation.org, Adaptive Training Foundation on all the social platforms, follow them, because you're going to see and be able to consume a lot of that narrative of these athletes, these adaptive athletes. But again, buy a t-shirt. It goes to the same funds. If you have the capacity to give, awesome. If you want to be a recurring giver, great. But for me, it's not so much about equal contribution as it is equal sacrifice. Mm-hmm. Make it meaningful for you. I think about the woman who gave the 2 bits, which was all she had, man. All she had. I remember growing up, and my parents, who included me and my sister, I have an older sister who's 2 years older than me. My parents have been married now 41 years. They didn't have enough money to pay our utilities and tithe. And they included me and my sister in this conversation. We were probably, 8 and 10, young, right? I mean, I have a 7-year-old now, so it's crazy to me. And they said, our choice is to tithe. If that means that we're going to have some more blankets and some candles and figure it out, we just want you guys to be ready for that. And as a kid, you were like, ooh, camping, this is going to be cool. I love this. And the next day, my dad got a bonus that he wasn't expecting for the exact dollar to the penny amount of the utility bill was.
Wow. Yeah.
So again, that's that same principle, and all of the things that my parents taught me to foster through compassion, because compassion interrupts. It changes the trajectory. Starbucks, Howard Schultz did that special Upstanders documentary when I stopped in the parking lot for Corporal Brian Aft, a Marine veteran that's a double above knee amputee who is severely addicted to heroin and was suicidal and all these different things. And, the truth is that moment, that intersection for us was a key element for compassion. In my head, I was late going home. Dinner was on the table. The girls were screaming. My wife was upset, all of these very rational things. But down here in my gut, it was you have to stop for this guy. Yeah. Slammed in the brakes, whipped it, scared the crap out of him. But ultimately, it very much, he discovered that he had something to fight for again. Mm-hmm. He had that new ridgeline. So that's what we do at Adaptive Training Foundation. If you follow me on social, you're going to see a lot of my girls, but also just that same ethos, which is people looking to defy impossible. Mm-hmm. Diagnosis, we use oftentimes doctor diagnosis is like the insurgent. Like, hey, they said you'd never, let's put that up on the wall and let's go get it. So that's where I would direct you. Outside of that, just it's Giving Tuesday. Figure out something, make it meaningful, and contribute today.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Oh my gosh. And I know there's nothing better that we like in the military than to be given a challenge. So what's your challenge you've got for us?
So I hope this really is a gift to you. Don't feel bad if you can't remember these steps exactly. I know we're going to share kind of and broaden them, but we use this tool constantly. I use this on a daily basis, certainly during quarantine when 2 young kids, pregnant wife. And, mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, is going to be a boy joining.
Man cub. I think God gave my wife a boy. I don't know if he gave me one, but I was at some level, thank you. Very excited about a boy coming. So here's the challenge. Here's the tool. You guys ready? When you find that, like all of us in the human experience, you're stressed out, racing heart, maybe a lump in your throat, sweaty palms, like you're spun out. It could be because somebody cut you off in traffic and this whole thing happened, or it could be because your boss said that thing, your relationship failed, whatever it is, and you're spun out. You're either tripping to the future, what could, would, should happen, or you're looking back at what you could have, would have, should have done differently, which for especially our veterans and first responders that deal with post-traumatic stress, that's what that does. It tears you from the present moment. So when you find yourself spun out, I want you to use this principle. It's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's immediately recognizing, becoming conscious and aware, whoa, I don't like the way I feel. Oftentimes, you notice this in your body before you can actually assign an emotion or a feeling to it, especially as men who aren't really in tune with a lot of those emotions and feelings. And so you go, 5 things you can see. Say them out loud. Light, poster, flag, whatever. 5 things you can see. 4 things you can feel. Hair on the back of your neck, socks in your shoes, right? You can actually presently touch yourself, but 4 things that you can feel. 3 things that you can hear. I hear the water running out there. I hear my fan above. I hear the echo in this. 3 things you can hear. 2 things that you can smell. Hopefully they smell decent. 2 things you can smell. And then what's the inside of your mouth taste like? Take a deep breath and welcome back to the present moment. Because in the time that it took you to find 5 things you see, 4 things you feel, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and what the inside of your mouth tastes like, you cannot focus on anything else. It breaks that incessant train that has pulled you from the present moment. Now you're grounded, and it's for you to decide where you put your attention and focus, because that is where your feelings and emotions derive, not the other way around. So COVID, everything Mama Lee said earlier about making the choice, the conscious decision to suit up, to move your body, to make mindful choices, and continue to develop yourself amidst a lot of uncertainty. Those are things that are in your control. And those people that are great, so many of the people that have already been on this podcast and will be in the future, all know this principle. Whether they're completely aware of it or not, they control what they can control. And when uncertainty comes, they lean into it, utilizing those small factors, right? Like, this is why, again, the teams are the best. To me, they're the supreme, right? Any tier 1 operator understands restraint and the ability to discern and make decisions at a rate that most humans cannot. Right. It comes from immense training, immense exposure. Well, we're in a season of exposure. Mm-hmm. Right now, you're dealing with that resistance and the issues of COVID. So you decide how you apply that principle to ground yourself, to then make a decision of what's real and what was actually just inflated in your head.
So good. So good. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's all of our senses that are in there. Yeah. And that is so important when we learn things. I had a preschool and kindergarten for a while. And if you use one of those senses, 20% of it you will learn. If you use, 2, 40. if you use 3, 60, 80, so 100. So wow, that's awesome. I love that. And I've never heard it expressed quite that way. Yes, I hear what you're saying, and those things. So I love that you've simplified it and made it so easy. That is awesome. Awesome. I'm sure, Ryan, if you got time to stick around a little bit with sorry, I was looking at Ryan. David, if you can stick around for a little bit.
Yeah.
Ryan's ready to jump on. That's where I was going with that.
Woo, almost threw my computer off the desk.
Oh, don't do that. And we've got
man.
some questions and answers.
We do.
Time
We do.
here to go.
Yeah.
First, as always, brother, a big thank you. Man, just preaching today and such a great word for the people listening. And I'm going to ask you this real quick, though, because I'm a slow writer. You mind recapping that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 real quick for everybody that was like scrambling, but didn't, can't say timeout. Like, I didn't want to interrupt Debbie. I was like, I just want to do this.
Yeah. So the 5 is 5 things you can see. So identify them, say them out loud if you need to. The 4 is the touch, the sensory. So 4 things you can feel. Maybe your shirt on you, maybe toes in the socks, whatever. 3 is what you can hear. And it's interesting. Sometimes you may just hear silence. That's okay too. That's a thing. It's not a thing, but it's a thing. So 3 things you can hear, 2 things that you can smell. And then lastly, taste the mouth, take a deep breath. Welcome back.
So good.
Solid, bro. I'm trying to type this on the chat board so everybody can get that. So let's set up some questions here. First is just a thank you. Thank you, David. Awesome story. Thanks for being a vulnerable leader. You've just planted a little bit more hope for me in the work I want to do. So that's what this is all about. I'm so thankful you were, real, just like our other guests. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to inspire people here with an environment that Mama Lee just has a gift for facilitating in On Me 20 that lets people be vulnerable, authentic, and hopefully, give people some inspiration here. I'm listening to this with my 14-year-old son who loves football and is preparing for his freshman year in high school. His dream is to play in the NFL. What advice would you give him to prepare for football, life goals, and any other advice you think would be beneficial?
Yeah, so I have 2 things. The first is play multiple sports. These days, like, these kids get funneled into at 8 years old their sports and how they're going to go pro and all this. I'm like, football was always paramount for me, but the transition from football shape into basketball always sucked. But the footwork that came through basketball always complemented my football. And then baseball or track led to this. So number 1, do multiple things. That interdisciplinary approach will help you. Second is, I alluded to it earlier, I may have overtly stated it, but just do the next right thing, right? Like just make that next step. So look at the now, the today, knowing that, like, hey, he's 14, right? So say, 8, 10 years from now to be drafted in the NFL. There's a lot of days that lead up. And if you can just take, and honestly, it's not even the decision that you make that say yes to, it's largely the ones you say no to. It's almost 90% the things you say no to, which are sometimes going to cause you some ridicule, going to get made fun of, going to be the guy that, oh, no, he's going to work out on Friday night at his house in his garage rather than hang out with friends or go do that thing. But that is the differentiator to develop potential and talent so that you have an edge, because the mountain humbles all men, all people, right? And when you come to that point when those that are more talented than you hit that, that's where you excel. And for me, that was it. Like, this ability for moderate talent to beat the more talented all comes down to hard work. And it's all about focus and discipline in this day you have today. Don't trip looking 8 years out.
So how do we open ourselves up, be vulnerable when we are surrounded by expectations and stereotypes? I know that vulnerability is based in courage, taking risks, but it's still awkward. So would appreciate your thoughts, David.
Yeah, super real. Thank you. To this person, here's a challenge, extra challenge. You get 2. I want you to drive to a Starbucks or coffee shop or wherever. And I want you to get in line. Don't say anything to anybody. It could be one that's normally out of your path. Like, you won't run into anybody you know or whatever. But just go to the Starbucks, get in line. And while you're in line, middle of the line, just lay down on the floor for 30 seconds. and count. Just count to 30. At first, you're going to go, everybody thinks I'm crazy. Everybody thinks I'm crazy. And everyone's going to be like, dude, this person's crazy. What are they doing, right? And like, are you okay? Don't react. Just literally lay there for 30 seconds. And then about midway through, people are going to be like, oh, this person's crazy, and move on with their stuff. And then at the end of the 30 seconds, you're going to jump up and be like, I can literally do anything. Like, I am invincible. There's nothing that can stop me. Apply that same principle in the ecosystems and the spheres that you operate in, and you're limitless. But it is going to take growth-producing fear encounters to be willing to transcend those emotional feelings that rise up. And I'm not trying to make light or be facetious in any way to the reality, which is vulnerability is hard. So hard. That's where true strength lies. I love Jordan Peterson took some biblical scriptures and translated them in a profound way, because that Bible verse, the meek shall inherit the earth. That was always hard for me too. Kind of like that surrender word, like meek means weakness. I'm not weak. But no, what he translated it as was to have a sword, to know how to use it, but to keep it sheathed. That's meekness. That's power. So vulnerability is power sheathed. So here's the land the plane. The meek shall inherit the earth. That meekness is defined as or described as having a sword, knowing how to use it, but keeping it sheathed. That's real power. And the same is true for vulnerability. It's counterintuitive. It goes against everything that we feel, the emotions that rise up. But as you speak your truth, the floodgates of confidence, of purpose, of providence, and really prophecy in your life can come true. Like, that's, I think, where you discover the real you, not David Vobora, Caucasian, male, 34, NFL player, all these things that we identify with this vessel. Because the real essence of you is so much bigger than that, right? And that's where I think you discover it. So to that person, be encouraged to know, do the Starbucks thing. It'll blow your mind. But know that your greatest capability lies in the courage that it takes to be vulnerable and be willing to sit in that low place, because those are the ones that are exalted. Ultimately, that's where the real strength comes.
Yeah.
Somebody's accepted your challenge, brother. So some accepted it. I got to get in here, Debbie. What happened to your Wally wagon you had after you signed with the Rams?
Yeah, the Woody, baby. The Woody is still here. It is at the gym. Currently, if I make a left turn, it dies. So I'm making all right turns.
UPS style, baby.
UPS style. So when I was with the Rams, for people who don't have context, they used to do this thing on the big screen that was like Me and My Ride, right? Like kind of Cribs edition with guys' cars, and they do it in their Aston Martins and Ferraris and all these things. And so I went on Craigslist, Mr. Irrelevant, right? And I bought a 1984 Chrysler LeBaron wood-paneled convertible for $1,500. Drove the crap out of it. I'd valet it at nice restaurants and whatever. And when the Rams did this special up on the big screen, like, it kind of had this like persona. So it sat in Danny Amendola's parking lot for a year when I was with the Seahawks. When I shipped it to my house in California for a sum of money that was largely worth way more than the car that didn't run, my wife wasn't super happy. Then we shipped it to Texas. Again, not super happy. And now it sits outside of the foundation at the gym, and I still have it. It still has the fuzzy dice, the hula girl in there. And it is. It's a character. I think it's like a mascot really out front.
Well, David, thank you again. It has been absolutely amazing having you here today. I love you to pieces, and so grateful for you supporting us, taking the time to be able to do this. If you are a veteran or a military family who's struggling, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can reach us at americasmightywarriors@gmail.com is the email, or go through our website, americasmightywarriors.org. And as David said, today is Giving Tuesday. So whether it's adaptive training, America's Mighty Warriors, both, we know so many of you have been impacted financially and don't have that to give. That, your example, David, of the widow's mite, she gave everything, and how God blessed. You can't outgive God. I've seen that happen over and over in my life with very similar stories. But thank you, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow for number 17. We've got 4 more to go. And we're so excited to have so many people here joining us. I see Australia was here again today, Canada. Every day, David, we've had people from different places in the world. We've had Poland, South Korea, UK. I mean, it's just crazy to see the impact that Mark's still making around the world in such a crazy way. And I think of how
David,
he ends that letter. Yeah, Ryan.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were going to close out there. I'm sorry. I interrupted. I was trying to get David one last time, but I'll let you close. I'm sorry. My apologies.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Just the way he ends that last letter home, where he says, to my family and friends, do me a favor. Pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life. And this series has been our gift back to you in Mark's memory. And so we hope your lives have been changed. But if we all had that attitude and continued to pass on that love, that kindness, our world would overnight be a different place. So work on doing that. Pass on that love, that kindness, the precious gift of human life. We'll see you all back tomorrow. David, again, thank you. God bless you. Give your wife and kiddos a hug from me.
I will. Thank you. Love you big.
When fear flashes its teeth like a lion, when evil roars and walls begin to shake, there's a strength that's not my own. There's a fire in my bones. He is with me and his hand is ever on me. Follow on me. We're marching out into the night. Follow on me. We're standing up against a giant. Follow on me. We might be walking in the fire, but if it's where we're meant to be, then on me.